Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode on my channel where we're going to talk about raglans and particularly about what to look for in a raglan when we are interested in knitting one. If you don't know, a raglan is a certain shape of sweater, which is the same as this one, where we have all the increases going down 4 lines here in the front and in the back, similar to a baseball tee. Raglans are particularly easy to knit, in my opinion, when it comes to top-down sweaters. You could also knit it bottom-up, and then you would be doing decreases instead of increases. But today we're not talking about how to knit them or what type of body shape they fit best. We're going to talk about how to choose one raglan that would have the features you want. Because when you go on Ravelry or on Instagram or anywhere, you will see many raglan sweater patterns. And sometimes it's difficult to differentiate what the difference is, which one we should choose. And designers keep coming out with more. So sometimes people get a little confused as to why there are so many. So obviously, raglan, a simple top-down raglan is a classic and it's always going to be in fashion, and people are going to keep designing simple raglan sweaters because they want to put down in their own words how they prefer their own raglan to fit. In this video, we won't talk about how to make raglans fit better. We won't talk about which ones will be your favorite because you're going to have to figure it out on your own. But if you are interested in learning more about sweater construction and fit, there are amazing classes on Craftsy. Craftsy is sponsoring this video. Craftsy is your online resource for all things creative, including obviously knitting and crocheting and embroidery and all those beautiful things. I've been watching a lot of classes on Craftsy, including all the classes by Amy Herzog, like sweater modification for a custom fit, where she takes us through all the steps to have a sweater that will really fit your body type. She talks about the fit, the sizing, the construction, planning, and doing modifications. Amy also has a course that's called Simple Techniques for a Super Fit, and that course talks about how to gauge swatch and make sure that you have the best sweater you can have. You know, I'm an advocate for gauge swatching for sweaters, super important. If, like me, you like taking on new projects, learning new techniques, maybe taking up spinning or even baking. That's not me, but that might be you. Craftsy is a great place to be and learn from professional teachers. The first 1,000 of you to click the link in the description box below will get a full year of premium membership for $1.49. And that is valid for new members only, so come and join me on Craftsy. In the description box below, I put a link to my Ravelry bundle where I put a bunch of different simple raglan sweaters, and they all have different things about them. None of them is exactly the same. So here are the top things I would look for when it comes to choosing a raglan sweater. The first thing I would look for is the weight of yarn. That would be my first choice. So do I want a bulky sweater? Do I want a fingering weight sweater? Do I want a DK weight sweater? This is gonna limit my search a lot. So in my bundle, there are a few that are very thick, like the Metropolis sweater by Tanis Lavallee. I actually have knit that one, and I've knit it with multiple strands held together in order to create a stash busting project. And you might even see that mine is not at all the same as this. I did some modification. We'll talk about that in a minute, but this is a bulky weight sweater. There is the sweater number 9 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Yes, that is also a bulky weight sweater, and that one has a little bit of a design element on the raglan. There is the Louisiana sweater that is a super bulky sweater. So you have a lot of choice when it comes to yarn weight, because that bulky sweater is not going to feel the same as the one I'm wearing right now, which this one is the So Faded by Andrea Maury, which is in fingering weight. All of the raglan shaping, the number of stitches you cast on, the number of stitches you increase, are gonna be based on the gauge. So the gauge is set by determining what weight of yarn you're gonna use and what kind of drape you're gonna want. So if you're doing a sweater with a DK weight yarn, for example, in my bundle, we have the gingerbread sweater by Espace Tricot that is calling for a DK weight yarn or a light fingering and lace held together at a 21 stitch gauge. Then we have No Frill sweater, which is also a DK weight at a 21 stitch gauge. Then we have the Monday sweater that's a DK weight at 21 stitch gauge. So you're going to see a tendency here that the DK weight ones are oftentimes at around that same gauge. But if you were to knit the same sweater with a smaller yarn but at the same gauge, then you'll have a drapier, more see-through sweater, where if you knit the same gauge, 21 stitch, but you knit it with a worsted weight, then you'll have a more dense and a sweater that kind of holds a lot more its shape. Yarn weight and gauge are going to determine which sweater you might choose to start. Then I would look for the type of collar. So the one I'm wearing right now, I'm not talking about necessarily the thickness of the ribbing. Yes, it can be enticing to see like when there's thicker ribbing versus skinnier ribbing like this one, but that can change. I could have knit that one with a longer ribbing, but I'm more talking about the openness of the neck. So this sweater is the So Faded. It has this neck that shows my tank top. I like to wear a racerback tank top, but if I were to wear my here, this is my warm-up sweater, and that one has a much tighter neck. Let's change it. Here, if I don't want my tank tops to show or my very close to the neck t-shirts, then this one is much nicer when it comes to the neck opening. It is much closer to the neck, and we can see it on the picture. So if you go on a project or a pattern page and you go on the projects and you scroll down, you'll be able to see a little bit how wide the necklines are. So that's a good thing, because the number of stitches that are underneath the ribbing is kind of what determines the shape of that neckline. Obviously, you can look at the collar. This one has a twisted rib, whereas all my other sweaters that are raglans don't have a twisted rib. They have a regular rib. Some have longer ribbing, some have shorter ribbing, some have 1, 1, 2, 2. But all that can generally be changed. So if I didn't want a twisted rib, I could have done a regular rib. And if I wanted it to be a funnel neck, I could have made a funnel neck. I could have even made a turtleneck out of this sweater. There's really no worry when it comes to changing the actual ribbing, but I'm not going to be able to change where it starts or where it ends. So that's where I want you to look at that neckline. This one does not have the same rate of increase on the sleeves and on the body, which allows the body to be wider. So to have a bigger positive ease without having sleeves that are very big. Sometimes you'll have a much wider, like this one also has a pretty wide body, and the sleeves are also a little bit wider because it kept on increasing at the same rate. Obviously, on the pattern page, it won't tell you the rate of increases, but you can look at the pictures and have an idea of what the ratio of the arms to the body look like. Do you want a sweater that has a lot of positive ease with big sleeves that maybe finish in a balloon sleeve? This one I know is not a sweater, it's a cardigan, but still it is a raglan cardigan. So this one has a lot of positive ease and has also a lot of positive ease in the sleeve. So that's different than this one in that way, where this one, the sleeves don't have that much positive ease. What you can look at is the depth of that raglan yoke. Do you want that raglan yoke to be very low on your armpits, to have a lot of space, or do you want it to be closer to the body? So on the pictures, you can look, you can see how deep the yoke seems to be on multiple people. You can look at where the raglan line is. So this one is starting basically at my collarbones, but some start a lot higher, some are a little bit closer. So if you pay attention to that before you buy the pattern on the pictures, you'll be able to see that patterns are actually different. The numbers that are kept for the sleeves, the front and the back, are not the same on any of the patterns that I own. And it is your decision whether you like a raglan that starts very high and comes kind of far here, or a raglan that's a little bit more inside and goes a little bit more in a steeper diagonal, I guess. The recommended amount of positive ease is something you might want to look at as well. Obviously, you can always change that. So for me, if I wanted to have much less positive ease, I could have taken a size smaller. The only thing that I have to worry about is if I take a small size smaller, is the depth of the yoke all of a sudden will it be too short? So obviously you want to stay within the range-ish of what the pattern designer called for, just to have a better chance at the fact that the sweater is going to fit you, but you still have a little bit of play generally. One thing I would say is if you are a person that wears their sweaters at like 0 ease or even negative ease, don't choose a raglan pattern that's meant to have 10 inches of positive ease, because the pattern was just not meant to fit that way, and probably the sleeves are going to be way too tight if you go down multiple sweater sizes to get no ease. Obviously, in the bundle that I put right there, some of them have decorative things, right? So the raglan seam here is a great place to play. It's a great place to play with the type of increases that designers use. It's a great place to play with maybe a little bit of a decorative thing. This one, believe it or not, this sweater, I was going to say... what was I going to say with chandail? Maybe. This is the same as this. So this sweater here that has the garter stitch and just a regular line of increases, I believe those are make ones. Make one and make one right and make one left. And there's only one stitch in that raglan seam. I took the same pattern because I liked how it fit, and I made this one. And what I did is I decided instead to do a little eyelet instead of a make one. So I did yarn overs, and it created this decorative seam instead of having a hidden increase. And I also took out the garter stitch on the shoulder because I had enough texture in this sweater here. Some sweaters like this one have a knit front and back increase. It is a different look. You like it, you don't. You can always change them generally, but it means that you have to understand how to change your increases from one type of increase to another. So some of them will have 2 or 3 stitches in between the increases to have a bigger raglan shape. Some of them will have a smaller one like this one. Some of them will have a straight sleeve, and some of them will have a tapered sleeve, and some of them will have a straight sleeve with an intense decrease at the end to have a balloon sleeve. Generally, sleeves are easy to adapt. So if you find something where you like the neck, you like the drape, and you like the raglan and the depth of the raglan, you're pretty much good to go, because the length of the sweater you can always change. The height of the collar you can pretty much always change, and the sleeve shape you can pretty much always change, but changing the ratio of the arms to the body, changing the collar opening, and changing the gauge, which is going to change the drape, are not things that are easy to adapt. One more thing that I like to consider is to look if there are short row shaping in the back neck. I like short row shaping because obviously because I like my collars to be quite close to my neck. If it was equal, then my sweater would ride up like this, and that wouldn't be very comfortable. So I want to have a little bit of a lower front of my sweater. So I like short row shaping, or I really like when the sweater is started flat. This one is started flat and there's increases as you go back and forth, and you start under the ribbing, you do those back and forth, and then you connect and you start working in the round, and when you're done working your yoke, then you pick up for the neck ribbing. I really like that way of working. One, because I prefer a sweater that starts with a cast on under the neckband. It means that once it's time to wear the sweater, that cast on here and that bind off here will be two places where it will hold the fabric. This sweater here does not have that, but this sweater is light as a feather. So there are no instances in which this collar is going to start spreading, but this one has a little bit more weight. There's a few that this one has quite a bit more weight, and that one was a collar that I picked up and knit to go higher. And the beauty of doing that is it means that if your collar is not to your liking and you start seeing that it spreads a little bit too much, or it's a little bit too loose, or it's not long enough, you can always unknit it and start again. Whereas if you start with the ribbing here, it's going to be more complicated to undo. You're going to have to cut your ribbing and do sweater surgery to fix your little problem. So that's just a little tip that I personally prefer, and sometimes I will change the way I knit my sweaters when the sweater calls to cast on at the top. I will cast on underneath, not do the ribbing, and then come back, pick up my ribbing and knit it. Here you go. That's all the informations I have for now on raglan. Obviously, there's a lot more to know about raglans, but if you have questions or if you want me to dive deeper into it, let me know. If you've knit some raglans, which ones are your favorite? Because obviously I made a bundle that includes 14 raglans, but there are so many more that I know I'm missing. Let me know which ones you would knit again, and maybe even which ones you wouldn't, so it helps other people understand what the issues were. If you liked this video, you can subscribe to the channel, or you can give it a thumbs up. Leaving a comment is always appreciated. Again, thank you Craftsy for sponsoring this video, and I will see you very soon. Bye.